Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of WJSK. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of WJSK's Talk of the Town, an interview program we present from time to time. This is Frank Pingree of WJSK Radio. This week's guest is a Bartlett resident and businessman and announced candidate to run for town selectman, Edward Furlong, known to many with a self-established nickname of HoboEd. Indeed, you were a hobo for many years prior to 1996. You've been clean and sober now, you claim, for 15 years, and become a successful businessman with an impeccable record. How were you able to pull that off, Ed?
Hi, Frank. Thank you for having me. How was I able to pull that off? Well, I had a sister, or I do have a sister, I might add. Her name is Jeannie Forrest, who lived here in the Valley. I came up here in '82, and I paid her a visit. And she was very instrumental in helping me out with my problems with what I was doing as an active hobo, riding freight train, living homeless, and being unemployed perpetually. She took me into her home and gave me the tools that I needed and pointed me in a direction that she thought would benefit me. I abided by her instrumentation and found work and tried to assimilate myself back into society, because I had been out of society for many years, out west and thereabouts, just making a nuisance out of myself. So I would have to say that my sister Jeannie Forrest, who resided in Bartlett, was very instrumental in helping me to achieve any level of success, and as far as putting down the drink and putting my nose to the grindstone and straightening my act out. So that's how that all started.
Ed is the owner and operator of Little Man Snowmobile Rental in Bartlett Village, and he also rents cabins over there, which is the beginning of the story of why he feels he's been discriminated against. What changes would you like to see in Bartlett if you were elected selectman, Ed?
I would like to see changes across the board, Frank. We need a clean sweep of that whole town hall up there. Starting with the selectman's office, we need to see fresh blood in there. What I'm seeing up there now is what I've seen, and my sister actually has seen since she's been living in town. It's just the same old, good old boy syndrome. Suppress small businesses, don't allow anybody else to flourish. As far as new businesses coming in town, when new businesses come in town and they go in for the review in front of the selectmen and the planning board, they're getting stonewalled. Okay, the land use ordinances are a tool that the selectmen use in order to achieve that. They tighten the land use up, the ordinances, in such a way that when you're a small business trying to open up, you get pushed back, fleshed back at every turn. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that we need to get in there and loosen up the restrictions, and we need some new blood in the town office.
You have publicly announced your intent to run independently, not as a part of a political party, for the selectman's post currently occupied by Doug Garland. Now, why do you think he should be unseated in particular?
Well, what I've seen with Doug Garland, I've seen him use his position as selectman to better enhance his own personal pecuniary interests. He has a cabin rental business here in town and a cross-country ski business in town, and his family owns pretty much some acreage down here in the village, and he doesn't want to see anyone else grow. I mean, as far as their businesses. And he uses his position as selectman to hinder other businesses from succeeding. I myself have witnessed firsthand how he's hindered my businesses throwing rocks down on my property to block my right of way. I mean, that was the most egregious thing that I could ever imagine someone doing. It violates the town's own green space ordinances. When you go and try to put something in a green space, you'll get a violation in the mail. Whereas the town can violate their own green space and throw rocks and boulders down on my green space next to my property.
I understand he did this without advance notice to you or your company.
That's right, Frank. He came in. There was no formal meeting. There was no invitation to reconcile any differences. Simply, one day I noticed some trucks and some backhoes down next to my property, throwing down these huge boulders, which were donated, by the way, by one of my neighbors who have been a competitor of mine. In the snowmobile rental business. And so, again, we go back to the good old boy syndrome type of style of local justice. I mean, they're all in it together, and they, there's nothing you can do about it other than to revamp the whole town hall.
Well, Ed, you've publicly announced now your intent to run independently for a selectman's post that's currently occupied by Doug Garland. Why do you think he should be unseated?
Well, Doug Garland has shown me that he uses his position as selectman to better enhance his own personal endeavors. He's done that numerous ways. One of which I would point out in a case in point is he's used the Bartlett planning master planning to enhance the cross-country ski trails to extend to Jackson and Intervale, not thinking about the impact it would have on the local snowmobiling industry here in Bartlett. And by doing that, he's oppressed other businesses. He doesn't believe that snowmobilers and cross-country skiers can coexist, and he has a one mind of that, and it's just it's not working. It's not working here in the village, and we need to see change.
How has that situation hampered your business? You are in the snowmobile business. You are the little man snowmobile operation.
Yeah. Well, it's hampered my business because by extending the cross-country ski experience into the towns of Jackson and Intervale, he's also simultaneously has suppressed the notion that we can share the trails as multi-use, and it's exclusive to his own business, cross-country skiing, and so he's totally against opening up the tracks or the trails to multi-use. So the trails that he has going up to Jackson and Intervale would be strictly for cross-country use only, and it would preclude any snowmobiling whatsoever. So that in itself is a hindrance on the snowmobiling industry.
You are having a problem with rights of way to your property, which included your snowmobile business, and this has been taken away from you. We understand the rights of way have been taken away from you. Could you describe that situation for us?
Yes, my right-of-way that's been attached to my property at 1455 Route 302 has been taken away by the selectmen by throwing rocks down in green space and actually just prohibiting me from the use of that right-of-way that's been attached to my historical lodging property that we've been enjoying for over 130 years. Dating back to 1890, and this has hindered my business, my cabin rental business, and my snowmobile rental business in such a way that my customers can't access the trails. And they threw rocks down on between my property and my right-of-way that existed for over 130 years and has been attached to my property. Which now my cabin rental customers cannot access the cabins on my property. They have to walk in over 200 feet to access their cabin rentals. Now, just to make note that Doug Garland also has a cabin rental business on his cross-country ski rental property, only a quarter mile from my lodging and cabin rental business. When he put those rocks down and kept my customers from accessing the cabin rentals, he must have seen an infusion of revenue to his own cabin rental business. When people would, inquire about our cabin rentals and found out, through, being honest that you have to walk to your cabin, they would simply do more research and find out that Doug's cabin rentals were more accessible. So therefore, I would think that he would see a more a crossover of people that used to rent for me now go to him to rent for their cabin rentals.
You entered a civil rights complaint in the United States District Court, the District of New Hampshire, a while back. Have you received any satisfaction from that complaint at all?
I have not. I'm seeing firsthand that the getting justice now in the state court level and the federal court level is a thing of the past. I mean, it's very hard for a pro se litigant such as myself to achieve any justice. My one main case was thrown out of the federal system due to what they call res judicata collateral estoppel, which means that my cases have been previously litigated upon, and then that keeps me from relitigating. And how that happened was I acquired a lawyer who kind of got me all screwed up, and now I'm fighting for my property rights, and it's going nowhere. So.
Do you expect to re-enter the suit at some time? You're going pro se, of course. You had a lawyer, but you dismissed him. Is that correct?
I did dismiss my lawyer, and I'm currently litigating against him to recoup losses, tremendous losses in both financial sector and my health. I am now currently seeking and looking at filing a class action suit regarding the right-of-way. I feel that the right-of-way that was taken is not just the right-of-way that my property relished in using, but also the general public for years past had relished in using. So I'm looking at a class action lawsuit right now against the people that have done this to me.
Well, this all goes back to your class action suit. Goes back to the behavior of the selectmen in the town of Bartlett, as well as some outside parties. I believe one of them you have named in the suit is a gentleman from the Forestry Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was a man, Mr. Terrence Miller, that was the forest ranger under the USDA Forest Service. He's since been relocated out of town under the pretense that, for whatever reason, they took him out of this district and put him in another district, and now we have a new forest ranger that I have to deal with. However, Mr. Terrence Miller had passed the torch over to this new man that's taken his position, his job, and I'm up against a mountain, literally a mountain, because these people with the USDA Forest Service, they're more of a left-wing, liberal type minded as far as they don't really like snowmobilers as much as they like cross-country skiers. So, again, my business as a snowmobile rental company is being discriminated against in that, the people I'm dealing with are cross-country skiers that are in authority to dictate what I am to do and what I'm permitted to use. And so they're stonewalling me on the backside in the White Mountain National Forest from entering in through the right-of-way as well.
What have they done specifically? I know there's a small baseball diamond in your area now in the next door lot, and you had a right-of-way out to the side of that baseball field. That has been blocked by the insertion of boulders. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. They put boulders down there, and it was a couple of years back that when they did that, The day of they did that, I had Wounded Warriors out on tour, on a snowmobile tour, a donated tour that I was participating in with the Wounded Warrior program that's out of Jackson, the Carrier family puts on, and it was a coincidence that the day of they put the boulders down. I had a double amputee. He was made to climb over these boulders, and it was ridiculous in its very nature. I couldn't believe it. I was appalled, and so I mean the fight goes on.
Did the selectmen or any parties to this closing down of your right-of-way ever attempt to approach you first before they did all of this?
They did not. They came in arbitrarily and threw the rocks down. I was totally taken by surprise by these big boulders separating my property and my trail access to the White Mountain National Forest out back. There was never any due process. Again, why I ended up in federal court, my civil rights were violated in many ways. One was basically the due process aspect of it all. I was never informed. There was never a formal meeting. I was never invited in to discuss anything. They simply, in conjunction with Doug Garland, the selectman, and Terry Miller, the USDA Forest Service, they simply made a decision to act, and I was left, holding the bag.
We're talking to HoboEd, by the way, about his opinions on local behavior by selectmen in the town of Bartlett. And I wanted to indicate here that I had talked to Representative Frank McCarthy, our representative out of Carroll County to the New Hampshire State Legislature. I emailed Frank on his opinion of RSAs. Those are revised statutes annotated, and what statutes come into play for the considerations of the behavior of selectmen and the duties of selectmen in the various towns and cities in the state of New Hampshire. And he could not find a specific RSA that governed selectmen. I also looked into the RSA file through the website, and I couldn't find any. And his reply to me, to Frank Pingree, I'll quote it here, a search has been made of New Hampshire RSA's chapters 31 to 53F that cover town government. He went on to say, you will not find anything specific relative to the duties and authorities of selectmen. However, it does state in several places that selectmen are governed relative to their responsibility and authority in accordance with state law. It is not, however, any more specific than that. This is in reply from Frank McCarthy in Concord, addressed to me, Frank Pingree. He is going to look into this a little more, he stated in his email to me. What governs the behavior, the legal aspects of being a selectman? Because right now in the state of New Hampshire, selectmen are unbridled. They're unbridled completely. They can do what they want to, apparently, and they can involve themselves in conflicts of interest if they want to, and there is no recompense to the situation, as you have indicated. So we got on to the RSA thing. You wanted to talk about RSA 673.13 and .14, Ed, so we'll let you go with that.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, 673, Chapter 13 and 14 is just that. There is nothing that polices the selectmen's behavior or their ethics. They can get involved in a tremendous conflict of interest with a citizen such as myself, which they have done, and there is no recompense or answer to any higher authority. They're giving a carte blanche to run roughshod over any citizen that comes into the selectman's office, unlike a planning board member, ZBA board member, even the chief of police has to answer to someone in the town of Bartlett. Actually, the chief of police answer to the selectmen, but the selectmen, they don't answer to anyone. It was to the point where I was so frustrated, Frank, that I had to file a petition with the New Hampshire Supreme Court and complain through a formal petition written about Doug Garland's behavior and his conflict of interest with me in his business, Bear Knots ski touring and cabin rentals and Little Man snowmobile rentals and Abenaki Inn and cabin rentals, in that he had such a conflict of interest, our two businesses being such alike in nature, that he was allowing himself as selectman to suppress my two businesses, and at the same time his business were flourishing financially, because we're so much alike in nature, our businesses, that of course that when people couldn't rent my cabins, they were blocked off. They would go down and rent from him and his cabins. So I felt it upon myself to write this petition to the Supreme Court, and in short form, Frank, they got back to me saying there's nothing they could do. This is the Supreme Court, mind you. There's nothing they can do, and they were very sorry, and that was the answer that I got.
Well, that's because they don't have any laws to restrict the actions of selectmen in the state of New Hampshire. That's the way I read that.
That is correct.
That's a personal editorial.
That is correct.
Okay, so we need some new laws enacted in Concord to regulate selectmen's activities. By the way, RSA 673.14 does do justice to the planning boards in the towns in New Hampshire. They are regulated, they have to report properly, and their involvement in outside situations are regulated, and they are able, I shouldn't say they are able, they can be dismissed based upon evidence of a wrongdoing. These same rules that apply for planning boards should well be applied to selectmen, in my opinion.
Yes, Frank, that is true. And after I got word from the Supreme Court that they couldn't do anything for me, I contacted my local senator, Mr. John Gallus, and started to correspond with him and see if he could do anything and offer any help. Well, he was slow going to do anything as well, to the point where I thought he was maybe perhaps a gilded member of the good old boy network.
More of the same.
More of the same, Frank.
Yeah.
He got back to me with a Senate research committee update that said pretty much what I told him when I was complaining to him about. He got back to me in letter form of the same material that I was offering up. So it was just like he was, just tending to me with lip service and not doing anything. So I hit a stone wall, and I'm back to square one. We need to change this. We don't even need to change the legislation. We need to amend it. Okay, we don't need new legislation. We can take the RSA 673 and amend it to include selectmen amongst the other planning boards, zoning board, and general representatives to get this all fixed up.
So your main reason for running against Doug Garland is essentially because you feel there is a tremendous conflict of interest in the way he has handled your situation of cutting off your right-of-way.
I'm basically running for selectman, Frank, not because out of anger towards anybody. That's not why I'm running for selectman. The reason why I'm running for selectman is to see change, to initiate change, and to make Bartlett a better place for all people considered. I mean, the unemployment rate is sky high. There's people here at the local level that needs to travel great distances to acquire employment, and whereas we're such a tourist-oriented society here in Bartlett that there's plenty of room to have small businesses succeed, but it's not going to happen with the land use restrictions that they have in place and the ordinances that preclude small businesses from prospering, okay? And that's because of the good old boy mentality. Gene Chandler, Doug Garland, and whoever the third selectman is at any given year. There's always an outgoing selectman. But they have this mentality that that, we have Storyland, we have Grand Supermarket, we have Attach. That's enough cogs in the proverbial economic wheel to sustain the job situation, the employment situation. But it's not. We need small businesses to accentuate this quaint community. One good thing is the Roundhouse Project down in town. I see that could be a benefit, but it needs to be augmented. I mean, it needs it needs some nurturing, so to speak, for it to grow and to attract the tourist, the people that come up here to recreate and stuff. They're going into Conway, and they're going to other places. They're going up to Lincoln. Okay, because we just don't have enough small little businesses for the eye appeal that this town needs. So we need to work on that.
What do you think you would do differently if you were elected selectman from the standpoint of business? You touched upon it, but I get the feeling there is a bias toward tourism for business. There's nothing wrong with that. It brings money into the town. But isn't there something more solid than that is a continuing business, not a seasonal one, such as technological work, companies to come up here and develop technology in the field of electronics, and that's not a violation on the environment either. It isn't like the construction companies that are tearing up the forests and what have you. Has there been any thought given to that kind of technology coming into Bartlett, say nothing of the rest of the valley?
Well, you got the Economic Council in North Conway and the Conways.
What have they done?
With the Technology Village and the expansion of that. So I don't know if that's going to...
Haven't seen anything up here.
No, we haven't seen anything in Bartlett. I mean, I think as far as the technology industry is concerned, I would like to see that stay right where it's at the Technology Village in Conway, and us up here do more things as far as business on the aesthetic lines of the tourist trade, such as tour businesses, stuff that is just more basic, aesthetically pleasing to the valley up here in Bartlett.
Well, getting back to your business, which is the crux of why you're running for selectman's office, to change the competitive nature of the snowmobile business in the valley and keep it away from the politics of the selectman's board. I understand a few winters ago that our selectman, Doug Garland, had chained up 3 of your customers' snowmobile rentals a few winters back, and made your customers walk back to your rental office. This was I guess the way you noted it to me, it was a defiance of your right of way. Do you remember that situation?
Yes, Frank, I remember that situation vividly, and that just exemplifies Doug Garland's behavior, and as he sits in the selectman's office. He became selectman, I believe, in the year 2000, and I think this incident happened in 2002, where he had his brother, John Garland, chain up 3 of my customers that were out on the trails behind what is now the Sisters Restaurant back on the railroad tracks. My customers got diverted and took a wrong turn and ended up down there behind the Sisters, which is actually a multi-use trail system back there. John Garland jumped out of his snowcat. He happened to be in the area and yelled in profanities at my customers, told them to get off the machine, pulled a section of chain out of his snowcat and chained my sleds up and made my customers walk back to the rental office with their helmets in hand. They weren't very happy about it. One of the female customers of mine, she was in tears, and it was all due that Doug Garland claimed that those tracks behind Sisters is part of his cross-country ski network, and that my snowmobilers shouldn't have been on them. And that was totally erroneous. It's a multi-use trail system there through the tracks, but just make a long story short, it doesn't matter. I mean, even if they were on the wrong trail system, they shouldn't have been treated like like that. These people come up here from wherever to spend money and recreate in our beautiful town. They didn't need to be treated like that, and I was very upset with that. I called the chief of police to see if there could be charges pressed. At that time, Chief Conifee was just coming into office. He explained to me that there was really not a crime committed, that I thought it was like theft or, chaining up my snowmobiles like that. It was, a sort of a theft. Tim Conifee explained to me that there really wasn't a charge to be had and that I should just leave it drop. Well, it was later on that I found that Doug Garland, the selectman, they actually signed the chief's paycheck. So again, I was back to square one, coming up against a stone wall, if you will, in regards to this good old boy network. I mean, you can't penetrate it.
Well, how would you attempt to eliminate the good old boy network? Because if you are elected in Doug Garland's place this coming year, you have two other members that you have to deal with as good old boys. I mean, the only way to deal with the good old boy network is to clean sweep it all at once. That can't be done.
No, it can't be done overnight, Frank, but there's always a starting point, and I feel that with my being elected as selectman would be a good start. I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to be for the citizens of Bartlett. I want to see more transparency in as far as eliminating these closed meetings that they're having. If you witness, they're always having these closed meetings, more closed meetings than not. And why is that? I mean, all meetings should be open to the general public.
That's correct.
And it's not happening. I would also like to see how these ordinances are being passed and voted on. I noticed that I went back into a few old ordinances and noticed there was just a handful of people who showed up to vote. And I reckon it's because of the way the town advertises that a drafted ordinance is being proposed, or a drafted piece of legislation is being proposed by simply putting a small, tiny ad in the back of the local newspaper is not enough. I feel that the registered voters ought to be have a registered email, that the town could email such proposed legislation or ordinances via email to the registered voters, so that would give them more insight and ability to vote online. Okay, by sending a return email to the town of how they wish to proceed with a certain piece of ordinance, and instead of requiring them to show up, because a lot of people need to work, and they have families, they get off of work, and they have children they have to tend to, and they just don't have time to show up when these ordinances are being displayed. So I think that's another way that we can to increase the likelihood that more people in the town can get involved. To use the technology that we have instead of being 20 years behind the times. I mean, as you remember, we just recently got our 9/11 numbers here in Bartlett, and for years we didn't have that. I mean, but we need to get in line and use the technologies that we have to augment the abilities of the citizens to be able to participate in the town electoral process.
Once again, reminding everyone you're listening to WJSK's Talk of the Town with special guest HoboEd, Ed Furlong, who is publicly announcing his candidacy for selectman against Doug Garland in the town of Bartlett in next year's election. Ed, one of the big criticisms about Town Hall in Bartlett in general is the way people are intimidated by the employees of the town. Somewhat by the selectmen at times, but mainly by the town clerk. I have experienced it. My wife walked out in tears one time, 2 or 3 years ago, when she tried to register her car because she had an out-of-state driver's license. And the person who is the town clerk attempted to intimidate me as well. She's known for trying to intimidate a great many people and sent a great many women, it's interesting it's women, out of her office in tears. Now, we don't need that arrogant behavior down there. We don't need it from any public official anywhere. What would you do if you received a complaint as a selectman about that situation? How would you handle it?
Well, first off, Frank, I gotta agree with you that I've heard some horror stories coming out of the clerk's office. To speak of one in particular and close to home was my own mother. Went there to see about changing a registration, a Florida registration that she had on her vehicle into a New Hampshire registration, and I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, my mother actually walked out of the clerk's office in tears. Okay, my 85-year-old mother walking out the clerk's office in tears. So what I would do if I was selectman, I would investigate why this is, why this person is who is clerk is being rude to the citizens of Bartlett. And what I would learn to understand is that I believe burnout, and we all know that you can get burned out on certain jobs, in time. This could be a case of just that. It's the person being burned out, not happy with their employment, or perhaps maybe just gratitude, as you know, can be fleeting. And perhaps that's the case of this as well. Who knows what it is? All I know is it needs to be addressed because this is not the image that we want to portray for our lovely town here in Bartlett, that we are arrogant fools at the town hall level. And so we need to make sure that we to evaluate that and not let that proceed.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments on that particular issue. I think it's of interest to a great many people because they have experienced it over the years in Town Hall at Bartlett because one person has been there too long. And that is the case many times about politicians. They've been in office too long, and it's time for a change. And that goes for Washington, D.C., too. Any other comments, Ed? We've had a good conjecture of ideas here on Talk of the Town today. How would you like to leave it?
Well, to address the last issue, I would like to see term limits for the local offices in that there would be 2 terms, and then after 2 terms, which is, I believe, would be 6 years of service, would be that the person would step down quietly, jubilantly, and let someone else participate in the town government. I'm not speaking on anything on the state level or national level as far as term limits, but I believe at local level there should be term limits of 2 years or 2 terms, 3 years each, which 6 years is plenty. And that would allow fresh blood to be brought in and new opinions and new ideas. And that will help keep this good old boy syndrome type of local government out of the way and in the closet somewhere where it belongs.
At the beginning of the program, we talked about your background as an alleged hobo, maybe more than alleged. What we should do is point out your website, which kind of tells the story. We didn't get into that earlier. Tell us about your website and how people can reach it. Yes,
Frank, thanks. My website came into fruition when I started experiencing egregious efforts on the behalf of the Selectman's Office, the U.S. Department of Agricultural to force the service level, continuing an effort against me and my businesses to shut me down via my right of way. I was compelled to do something. What came about was a website, and I named it Shedlight, and it's a website that I put a lot of effort into to make visible all my concerns and my plight for my own injustices that's happened to me since around 2006, when things really started to go south for me, and the selectmen, particularly Doug Garland, using his position as selectman to enhance vendetta and penalties against my businesses in the right-of-way that my property has enjoyed for over 130 years. And so you can go to www.shedlight.us. That's my website, and see all what's going on in my life, and that's what I appreciate it, and that's all I can say right now.
Okay, Ed, thank you very much. I'm glad we got that in. www.shedlight.us if you want to learn all about our possibly new selectman in the election coming up next year in the town of Bartlett. Okay, again, we look forward to the election returns coming up in March. You have not filed. When is the filing date?
I believe it's after the first of the year, Frank.
Okay, sometime in January.
I'll be checking in on that.
Yeah.
Last time I was up to town hall, they were kind of rude to me. So I reckon I'll be heading back into the town hall and trying to ascertain exactly when I'll be able to sign up. I am registered as Republican. However, I will be changing that affiliation, and I will be registering as an independent.
Why an independent?
Well, I feel that the bipartisan politics it should be actually abolished. I mean, it's ridiculous how they're fighting, and there's no harmony amongst them. And so I just feel that me being an independent, is the right way to go right now.
But how would you obtain consensus if you didn't have bipartisanism?
Well, I feel even as I was a Republican, I had left-wing views, liberal views, and I always, vacillated. And I believe, and if I did that, I think everybody, even liberals, tend to have some conservative ideas. So I think it's ridiculous. And if you look back at the history of politics back into the 18th and 19th century, our forefathers advocated against bipartisan political arena.
Because they were used to the King of England, that's why.
That's correct, Frank. That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Ed Furlong, Bartlett's HoboEd, for giving your perspectives on Bartlett, its political arena, and what the town should do to move ahead in the years ahead. This has been Talk of the Town, a periodic interview program on WJSK Radio, dealing with local organizations and issues. Thank you, Ed Furlong. This is Frank Pingree. Thank you for joining us.